Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we're talking about Soviet CVs. So the line is in early access right now. If you participate in the Soviet CV event, you should get enough of the Soviet CV tokens to be able to get the Tier 4 and the Tier 6 Soviet CV. If you want to get the Torpedo, you will have to spend a little bit of money buying the random bundles to get enough tokens to get her. Now, the Chikhalov was also released as the premium ship with this update, and I did wind up picking her up to try out Soviet CVs, and well, I gotta say, after playing her for some while, and quite a few times on stream last night, generally Soviet CVs seem to be pretty underwhelming from what they were hyped up to be. Now, of course, this carries with them the stigma of it's a Soviet ship, so it's already, people think it's biased. It's a CV, so people think it's biased. It's a paper ship, so people think it's biased. And then it's all those things together, so people think that this whole line was going to be this absolute god tier destroyer of worlds, if you will. Now, there are some key differences between the Chikhalov and the Tech Line ships, but fundamentally, most of their mechanics are pretty similar, with a couple of differences here and there in terms of like the arming distance on some of the armament is slightly longer on some of the Tech Line ships, but then slightly shorter on some of the Tech Line ships. But overall, the mechanics of how the line work are pretty much the same. Now, a pretty big disclaimer is that the Chikhalov does not have the rocket planes that the rest of the Soviet Tech Line does get. Now, I have heard that these rocket planes are quite good, and I mean, they're the American Tiny Tims, or, well, they're not exactly the American Tiny Tims, but they've been said to have the same performance as the American Tiny Tims. And with the amount of ordnance you're throwing at the wall, sure, I can see if that whole flight gets through, it's going to rock the world of whatever it hits. But overall, the line has some huge drawbacks to its, well, existence. And we're going to go through those today. Now, for the Soviet CVs, what's the whole point of the line? The whole idea behind the line is that you have potentially amazing alpha with your strikes. But there's a couple of catches with that. So as you can tell by the footage you're watching right now, the first major change is that there's no individual squadrons. The whole flight attacks at once, which of course leads to that massive alpha strike. But these planes are relatively slow. Now, they are not as slow as they were first introduced as way back when the line first was announced. They've sped them up a little bit. However, they took the hill away from every single squadron. So these planes have absolutely no way of recovering health once they've left the carrier. So, these planes, if you take a look at the hit pool, most of these squadrons of the Chikhalov have around 10,000 HP. That is not a lot. That is not a lot at all. However, this allows the attacking ship to shoot down aircraft fairly easily and reduce the amount of ordnance coming in at it, which 99% of the ships that you will run across with the Soviet CVs can do fairly easily, even if they are alone. That's how weak these planes are. Do keep in mind too, I've built into their survivability quite a bit with the commander skills and with the modules as well. So these are just about as tanky as you can get these aircraft. As you can see, they get shot down fairly easily. Now, of course, the Chikhalov is a Tier 8 CV, so it gets up tier to Tier 10 quite a lot. So you can imagine what this is like going up against Tier 10 AA almost constantly. Yeah. So, yes, if you somehow get your entire squadron through the AA, yes, you can deliver some awesome alpha, but that's not the only hurdle you have to get through when playing Soviet CVs. This is worth mentioning too that I'm of course not the world's best CV player. I'm quite bad in them. However, I'm of course measuring these CVs against the other CVs at my own experiences. I'm not, saying they're awesome or not based upon what someone else has said. I'm using my own personal experiences. I'm not going off of what other players say. I'm just, going off my experiences. So do keep that in mind. It should be pretty level is what I'm saying, because I'm comparing my skills in one ship to my skills and experience in another ship. Anyway, so besides the paper planes with very slow speeds, what else do you have to get through? Well, the run-up for the two main armaments on the Chekhalov are massive. The torpedo planes have a massive arming distance of a meter. Not a meter. Of 819 meters, which is almost a kilometer, just to arm the torpedo. They also only go 45 knots. And that is with the torpedo speed module equipped. So they're slow. You have to give them an absolutely massive lead, which means that even ships like the GK can dodge these torpedoes quite easily. If whatever target you're running up on in these torpedoes has a single brain cell, they can dodge it easily. Even something like the Vermont. That's how slow these torpedoes are. Think about it. 45 knot torpedoes with the module with almost a kilometer run up. Yeah. Now, as I'm sure you've probably seen, if you do manage to get the reticle down all the way and get the torpedoes off, it is an absolute ball of hate that you will be throwing at the enemy ship. But again, if they're paying attention, they can dodge it quite easily and minimize the damage. Most of the time, you'll be landing 2 or 3 torpedoes at max. Every now and then, you'll find a ship in a bad position that either can't turn toward you or they just aren't paying attention. At that point, sure, you hit them for frickin' 25k, but from playing this ship, I think I have like 8 or 9 battles in her so far. I've done that one time to a Vladivostok that just sat bow into my team and they didn't move at all. That's the only way you're able to get that done. The same thing goes for the skip bombers. There's a lot of distance between the bounces. There's 3 bounces before you get to the target. Plus you need a pretty big run up with skip bombers in the first place to, of course, get them to the target. But again, if all your planes make it through, you line up correctly, and the target doesn't move at all, yes, you will be delivering quite the wallop with the skip bombers. There's maximum bomb damage of 8,700, and there are 6 bombs in the run. So yeah, again, if all those bombs connect, that's a lot of hate you're throwing at the target, but very rarely will all of your bombers get through, and then all the bombs will connect after that. And what's surprisingly been some of the best planes in this ship, for me at least, have been the normal bombers. Just good old-fashioned dive bombers. They dive straight down. They actually dive really darn close to the ship, and it's the same bombs that are being dropped from the skip bombers too. They're just not skipping, they're just dropping them normally. And these have been pretty okay for me, and it shouldn't be a big surprise because they're pretty similar to the old Graf Zeppelin dive bombers in the nature of their dive and in the shape of the reticle. So that's probably why they're working more for me than others. And I've had surprisingly a lot of success bombing DDs with these things, and they do like 8k on average, from my experience at least, against DDs, and it's pretty funny watching it happen. But again, it's not like I can do it every time. It's just that, again, with the amount of bombs you're throwing at the target and the shape of the reticle and the nature of the dive, it works out pretty well for that. Now, am I going around slapping DDs out of existence? No. And again, if they're paying attention, it's not the hardest thing in the world for them to dodge either. So that's the plane. So you have massive run-ups on the targets. The targets have plenty of times to dodge, and each plane that gets shot down takes a torpedo or a bomb away from being thrown at the target. And honestly, I like this mechanic. This is something that a whole lot of players have been saying needs to happen with regards to CVs. With a normal CV, if you shoot down, say there's 10 planes in the flight, but there's 3 planes in an attack run, even though that number's not divisible by 2 or 5, whatever, it's just an example. You can shoot down 7 of those planes, but you cannot stop the attack. because there's still 3 planes left to fill in that attacking squadron, and they will get through to you. That has been a huge gripe with me and with many other players too. And now we have a CV line where you can actually take away damage that's coming toward you with your AA. AA is very useful, again, with these CVs. And I very much like that idea. I also like one other aspect about the CVs. It's a pretty neat design feature, which is, of course, the rocket-assisted takeoff. Couple that with the relatively good concealment of the Soviet CVs. The Chekov, without any concealment modules on it whatsoever, has a concealment range of 13 kilometers. So if you build into that, you can get it quite a bit lower. And with the rocket-assisted takeoff, you can park your ship quite close to the action and get your planes on target pretty quickly. Now, this is a high-risk, high-reward scenario because, boy, if you get caught in this thing, you are dead. The Soviet CVs have garbage armor, absolute garbage. The Chekov and the Pobeda both have 30mm flight decks. The Chekov has an exposed citadel. The Pobeda doesn't, but I mean, with how squishy the armor is, it doesn't really matter. You will die if you get caught out in the open with this ship, and there's more than like 1 or 2 ships around. Or heck, if there's just a battleship player with pretty good aim, you are Dunzo and the Chekov and the Pobeda, from my experience and from what I've seen and from what I've heard from players that do have the Pobeda. Now, this carries on to the Tier 10. The Nakhimov has terrible armor. Its citadel is I'm pretty sure the size of the Hindenburg, if not bigger. It's massive. So it's not just like a one-off for the Chekov that it has weak armor. The whole line is like this. So yeah, you have a CV where you can actually regularly pin the flight deck. So, yeah. Good luck if you get caught out in the open. So, overall, the Soviet CVs, I like a lot of the design ideas. They are one of the more challenging CVs to play, of course, because there's a whole lot of skill involved now with the way the mechanics work, because you have to lead the targets massively, which means you have to predict their moves. With some other CVs, like many of the other CVs, they're torpedo bombers. You can reliably get damage with those torpedo bombers. You can pretty much guarantee that most of your torpedoes will hit the target, like with the Immelmann, with the Richthofen, the Hakuru, the Midway, the Audacious, all of them. You can regularly hit torpedoes. With the Soviet CVs, the run-up is so huge, you have to predict which way that ship's going to turn. Is it going to turn into my torps? Is it going to turn out? Is it going to keep going in the straight line? You have to take all that into effect. And of course, many ships at Tier 8 are quite quick. So your 45-knot torpedoes, again, the lead you gotta give is crazy. Same with, of course, the skip bombers as well. There's a fair amount of skill involved in this. And again, I like that. I said that back when we were going through the dev blogs of these ships with the skip bombers. Skip bombers are, of course, more skill-based. It's not like the normal HE dive bombers, like what the ship has, where you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get bombs on target. You have to lead the ship right. You have to get the reticle on the ship just right, too. And even then, especially, again, with the arming distance and the amount of bounces that these bombs have, the ships have plenty of time to maneuver, so it's really just... it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve, and it's quite difficult to use, especially for someone like me who's not that great with CVs. But again, comparing my experience in the Chekov to my experience in other CVs, they're very interesting. And I do like how they've shaken up the CV formula with this line. And it is unfortunate that this line is just going to be written off by many because Soviet paper ship, Soviet CV. You know, the meme finally came true in this line. But it's a really well-designed line. There's some great benefits. There's some great downsides. And again, a lot of what we as a player base have been saying needs to happen with CVs. AA actually meaning something once again. The CVs being pretty much dead if they get caught out in the open. You can pin the flight decks of the Tier 8 down quite easily. And then the Tier 10 only has a 50mm flight deck, so it's a relatively weak flight deck. Bombs can pin it, so if another CV can easily bully the Nakhimov if it catches it out in the open. And again, the Citadel is massive. I'm sure I've shown it on screen here too. So there's some interesting stuff going on with this line, and I'll leave it at that. If you do manage to get them in an early access bundle, if you get the sequential bundles, try them out. It's pretty interesting. It is a big learning curve. And the changes that were made to it, with the hill being removed and the speed being increased, I think that was for the best. If these planes did have a hill, boy, so many more would get through, and yeah, that'd be freaking rocking the world right there if that was true. It was a very good call to remove the hill and just give those planes a little bit more speed and add a couple more planes on the deck. But it's an interesting line. I encourage you guys to try them out. Of course, do not spend money on the event trying to get these ships. The whole line will, of course, be available for free. And I think they're actually only doing this for 1 month. They normally do these early access events for 2 patches, but apparently they're only doing it for 1 patch. So just wait, just 4 more weeks now, and you can get your hands on these for free. But they're an interesting line. We'll see how they develop in the future, if they get any changes after the line has been fully released. But they're definitely not as bad in terms of being overpowered as many were saying. And of course, I'm sure there's been many in the comments too, Soviet CVs bad, all that jazz, but I gotta give it to them. It's an interesting take on CVs. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Saturday and a wonderful weekend. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 30,000 subs, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.